Hello, and welcome back to Amplify with Purpose, the podcast exploring what it takes to live well and lead with purpose. We discuss everything from nuanced business strategies to transformative leadership and personal development. In every episode, we have beautiful conversations and practical tips to help you live your best life. My mission is to help you live with purpose and amplify your impact. So, whether you're looking to amplify in your business or enriching your personal experiences, or maybe you're just here for a little bit of inspiration, you're in the right place. Today, I have the privilege of speaking to one of my favorite guests, Dr. Janine Do Cabo, who is the author of Intentional and It Is Finished, and she's also the managing director of the JD Secret. Dr. Janine, welcome.
Thanks, Odette. It's great to be back.
So in our conversation today, we're going to dive deep into the theme of overcoming challenges. Life and business often presents us with obstacles that can feel insurmountable, impossible, and exhausting. But in these moments, we really figure out who we are, what our strengths are, and what makes us resilient. Dr. Janine and I are going to be discussing how you can navigate these challenges and share lessons on what we've learned along the way. So if you're facing hurdles in your journey, or you're simply looking for a little bit of inspiration and motivation to push through, this episode is for you. So let's go. Dr. J, let's start with personal challenges. Can you share a significant challenge or personal challenge that you faced as a mother and an entrepreneur, and how did you navigate that experience?
Odette, I think the first one that comes to mind for me was around 2010 when I went through what I call the 4Ds: depression, divorce, delivering a baby, and death of income. It was a very trying time in my life, and how I made it through, I would say, is a lot of resilience, faith, and then support from the people around me. But sometimes it comes to that place in your life where you just have to put your head down and do what needs to be done. Something I firmly believe in is that you and my husband and I often laugh about this because he would say, no, just get over it or build a bridge. We say that stuff. And I always say to him, no, it works not like that for me. It is, let's get through it. Because I just believe that if we build a bridge and we get over it, we're telling our mind, we're not dealing with this thing. We're not ready. We're literally getting over it. And I think of emotions as water because it's free flowing all the time. It literally flows from our eyes at times. And what happens to water, that just stands. It's the same with our feelings. It's going to rot, right? So we need to get through stuff. And I embraced that time in my life. I realized what it was. I realized that this was a difficult time. And I was like, okay, I'm in for this also. And that's where intentionality was born. That's where the 10 principles came from. That's where I embraced them. That's where I went through them. And I believe that through every trying time in your life, personal struggles, spiritual, mental, it doesn't matter, professional struggles, there is something in there for you to learn from. So what I've just decided when the struggles come is my first reaction is, what can I learn from this? And what am I taking out of this? For the rest, I'm going to make the most of this. And I know it sounds crazy. Like, why do you want to make the most of a struggle? Because that's the entire point. I'm not going to go down with this thing. That's where resilience comes in. I speak about that often. So for me, death, divorce, delivering a baby, and depression, all of that at the same time. It was a very tough time, but I embraced the struggle and I'm better for it today. Absolutely. I think, that for me was one. As a mom and an entrepreneur, you're gonna have struggles as well. Sometimes it's just exhausting and not always rewarding, but you can manage these roles effectively. And I think preparation is key, and you have to integrate personal with family values. That's going to help you. And this approach obviously is going to strengthen your family bonds, but it's also going to sustain your energy and your motivation that you need. But that's me, Odette. How about you? Have you faced similar challenges, and how do you manage both the personal and professional responsibilities?
First of all, wow. can we just acknowledge, wow, like you, people and you, like, oh, they live such a charmed life. No, they experience things and they use it to build on instead of being broken down by. So that's amazing. And thank you for being vulnerable with us and sharing with us the realities of who is Dr. Janine today, because we all think, we'll look at other people and we go, oh, charmed life. Yeah, that's just so lucky. But actually, no, that's not the case. Also, for those of you who have questions about integration, we actually did a show on integration, work-life integration, and how to make the best of whatever situation you're faced with. So go check back in the podcast and on our videos, you'll find an episode on work-life integration. And now back to your question, just a little bit of a plug there on the show. Come on, we have to do that. So for me, definitely balancing responsibilities of my business has been a journey of continuous learning. I obviously didn't start out as a business owner. I used to work in corporate, and then we decided to move to Australia. And when we did that, I made a conscious decision to not find a job and be slave to 9 to 5. So we left everything familiar behind, our network, our support, everything we had. As a mother, it was really important for me to secure my kids first when we got to a new country. And then I decided, let's start a business, because what are you going to do with your time? And it really came down to planning and consistent reevaluation, because the Australian culture is very outgoing, and the culture is just people live and do business at a pub on a Wednesday night, on the golf course, whatever, insert networking event here. And for me, that meant I miss chaos. I miss suicide hour with my kids. Suicide hour, for those of you who don't know, is the shower, dinner, bedtime. It's that time where people who don't have their heads screwed on and aren't grounded feel like they're going to commit suicide because your kids drive you nuts, even the best kids in the world. And it was important for me to be around for those things. And it just tore me apart to not be able to be there. And I had to make a decision. It was grow the business the way I know that the business grows here, which is over a conversation, a cup of coffee somewhere at night. So then it is just what it is. I'm going to make this work, but I'm not going to sacrifice my time. So I had to reevaluate my priorities. My priorities will and always have been my kids and making sure that I sow into them and invest in them. And I then made the decision not to do those things. Obviously, I needed to recognize that decision came with a cost. And the cost was that I cannot possibly grow my business as quickly as other people who started at the same time as me, because I refused to spend Monday to Thursday at some networking event down in the city and then get home up to night. I just refused to do that. That was just not going to happen for me. And I, at that point, actually really discovered why clarity was so important. It's important for us to be clear about what our purpose is. It's important for us to be clear about what we want out of our lives. So for me, my business is an extension of my life. It's not separate from my life, very much like you. It's about integrating. It's about making sure that I'm a whole individual, and I simply cannot be when I feel like a part of me is broken off and stays at home. I needed to be clear with my family. So it was an acknowledgement that we sometimes drive each other nuts because we're in each other's faces the whole time. But this is an opportunity for us to sow into and really invest into the kids. And that's a conscious decision that we made. And it's constantly that reminding yourself when an opportunity comes along going, does this fit the purpose? Does this fit the season that I'm in at the moment, which is to be a mom and so into my kids so that they can be amazing human beings. And of course, that kind of means that you have to sometimes take a step back. Sometimes your own desires is not the thing that's happening at the time. And you have to look for harmony rather than perfection. I was very hard on myself in the beginning. And I realized that actually that doesn't serve me in any way, shape, or size. If God has grace on me, why on earth would I not have grace on myself? That is just ridiculous. And we also discussed being present in whatever it is you're doing. And hard to be present when you are not living your purpose, when you are not truthful to yourself. So for me, probably the biggest tension has been moving to a new country and starting a business at the same time and finding what works in that space for me because my race is different to everyone else's race. Yeah, life's full of interesting ups and downs. Speaking of personal challenges, Dr. Janine, what are the biggest obstacles that you've encountered as an entrepreneur, and how did you overcome them?
Before I answer that, I just want to go back to something you said. You highlighted some really powerful words: clarity, harmony, integration, and being present. And I think that is like a recipe for success. So if you're taking notes, that's the words you should be taking note of today. Is clarity is so important. If you don't know where you're going, how you're going to get there, if you don't know why you're going there, then you're going to struggle to end up there, and you're going to question yourself a lot. Harmony is so important. The integration of our time, our family, our purposes, everything that comes together is important. Think about, it's not only you that have a purpose, it's your family that also has a purpose, each person. And it's our responsibility as moms and entrepreneurs to guide them on the personal side, but also the entrepreneurial business side, what they were made for. And then that happens when we are present in the moments. So just that's really valuable points. For me, Odette, on the professional side, I have a lot of stories, and I often tell the one when I went to America of John Maxwell and where I struggled to speak in front of people. My struggles wasn't always visible onto the outside. My struggles was
Mm,
often internal for me. I struggled with self-doubt a lot, external skepticism. I was always wondering, what were people thinking? What do they think about me? How are they going to interpret this? I could say I was borderline people pleaser because it mattered to me what people think or thought about me. Definitely today it's very different. And I don't say that like I don't care what people think about me. I just know the purpose. I know the why. I have clarity on where I'm going. Therefore, others' opinions mean less to me
mm,
because I know in my heart of hearts that what I'm trying to do is the right thing. So that's what I really struggled with. But what I've discovered in that process was that if I continue to develop myself and my business, I get through this and I work through these things. Public speaking, as an example, is when I went to John Maxwell. Let me quickly tell you the story. I went there for the certification, and I'm always up for a good challenge. So I knew walking into that room, I was the youngest person in that room. And I was also the only person from South Africa. The closest to me was Nigeria at that time, was somebody from Africa. So it was just like a crazy moment, and I embraced it. And being totally prepared for almost everything in my life. When I got there, I was like, ready, I'm going to do this. I've done my homework, as we can call it. I did my preparation. And as we sat down, they started, and there was thousands of people around tables at that point in time, and they're like, you have 20 minutes, this is your first assignment, you're going to introduce yourself. And I just felt the blood go straight from my head down to my toes, and I was like, no, that was not in there. Like, what on earth am I going to say? This is the thing I hate most, is standing up and speaking in front of people. Why must I do this? Introvert, extrovert, I don't even care. I don't even know what I was at that time. I just didn't like doing it.
mm,
And I remember as we sat down, they started with me as well. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And as I look up, I see in the middle, on the table in the middle, it says, do it afraid. And I was like, that's what I did. I stood up and I started speaking for 20 minutes. I cannot remember a word that I said. And I sat down, and then they had to send my book around and everybody had to evaluate. And I still have the comments today. And I was like, it was all good. It was all good. And then I realized again, public speaking, it's a skill. Most of the stuff we struggle with is skills we just have not learned. So I think that was the thing that I unearthed, is that everything that you struggle with is a skill. Self-doubt, you just have to learn the opposite of that, and you have to learn trust in yourself, and the abilities within yourself. Is you have to get to know yourself. So for me,
yeah.
I realized that because I have self-doubt, it's like, why? Because you don't know yourself, you don't know your skills. I always ask myself the question, what am I good at? What am I great at? What can nobody beat me at? I ask those questions
Mm,
because then I'm not going to have self-doubt in those areas. If there is, I need to learn the skill and I need to master that. And I also encourage that you have to build a strong foundation with steady progress. I love what you
mm,
said earlier on, that you realize it's not going to be as fast for you as for everyone else. But I bet you, Odette, your foundation is very strong. So you have to build a strong foundation. You have to make steady progress. Self-development, I cannot hammer on that enough. Self-development and understanding the core of your mission. Why are you doing this? Who are you doing this for? They are key strategies for you to use to overcome the obstacles that you're going to face in professional challenges. Yes, I faced ups and downs in my business, but I knew that was going to happen. That's what they tell you is going
Mm.
to happen. So
Yeah.
the things that I couldn't predict, the internal struggles, that for me professionally was just much harder to deal with. But
Mm.
once I did, I came out so much stronger. Again, resilience, just tackle that thing, just get it over and done with. That's what I'm saying. The
Mm.
struggle is real, so just get through it. But for yourself, Odette, I'm sure you've also faced some hurdles in your professional arena that you operate in. So how did you tackle them?
Before we get to that, I want to add, you said something, we had a conversation at some point, obviously not online or on a show, but you said, what's more important is what's happening in you. And I feel like I 100% agree. And that's exactly what you've just demonstrated. I believe public speaking is the number one fear in the world because it's a skill that you learn. And if you've never been taught how to do it, then you would be freaked out because you have these stories happening in your head. And yet, when I look at you today, I could never in a million years imagine that you could be scared of speaking to anybody. I see you as a fearless human being that's ready to take on challenges, which is why you're in my tribe, because we do it afraid. And whether you had to learn it by doing public speaking, or you had to learn it by doing the business, or you had to learn it by getting out there and just saying things, the fact is you had the courage to step up and do the thing where most people are afraid and stop what they're doing because they're afraid, which is just ridiculous. I don't live in that space. In terms of professional challenges, I think my biggest challenge has always been my mouth and my face. My mouth, because I say what I think, and my face, because when I'm not saying it, it gives you the subtitle. And I think my biggest professional challenge has been also my biggest growth area. Because for a very long time, I'm obviously passionate about CX and I'm obviously passionate about what I do. And I did this for a living, but I got paid for it by a large organization. And the leaders that I worked with, work DX is nice to have, and it's the same as customer service. And it's a thing. We already do it. Not true. But I had to go on a journey with them, bearing in mind my mouth and my face don't always work together, to take them on a change process. And when I took on the role, I knew from the first day I took the job, I was like, you're either insane or you're brilliant, because you're either going to lose everything and they're going to fire you, or you're going to make this work and it's going to be phenomenal. Neither of those two things happened, because I spoke to a friend the other day, and that organization has taken well over a decade to now come full swing to realize actually customer experience is important. But it was a series of drip irrigation. And for me, it was understanding that my timeline and my priorities are not necessarily your timeline and your priorities. And I need to allow space for you to learn. And that's probably one of the biggest aha moments I've had when I started coaching. My coach said to me that you can't use your awareness against other people. And I was like, one of it. No, you can't. But I've had to learn that we all go on a journey in our own time. And I need to allow the space for you to go as fast or as slow as you need to go, so that the learning for you solidifies. Sometimes it's in an instant. You get it, you've got revelation, you know what you're doing, and off you go. And other times it takes time because it needs to settle and it needs to take root and it needs to ferment over time. So for me, probably that's been the biggest hurdle, that it's understanding that not everyone's running at 110 kilometers an hour. And that's okay, by the way. We don't have to run that fast. I've also learned how to slow down, but it's not an easy thing. We're like doing this thing. We're doing it now. What do you mean you're not on the bus? I remember having a conversation with a group of female leaders, and I looked at the woman and I said to her, it's simple. They're on the bus or they're off the bus. The bus is leaving with or without you. Now, obviously, that went down like a lead balloon. And, and I'm sure if she saw me today, she'd be like, mm-hmm. But it's been a process of working on and in myself to align my face and my mouth so that my subtitles are less pronounced, and appreciating that we are who we are. And it's our difference, it's our variance, it's our variety that creates the texture, that creates the beautiful world we live in. But we have to acknowledge that it's a professional development thing, absolutely. But I think more than anything else, it's what you said. It's what's happening inside of you. It's the growth that happens internally that other people don't see, that they're not aware of. But those are the things that shapes your character, and the characters what shapes your potential and your future. And quite frankly, I would much rather address my character flaws when it's low risk, low impact than get to, for example, the famous singers who now their character flaws are coming to the fore and they are not taking a slow deterioration. They are crashing and burning. That's not what I want for myself, for my business, or for my family. And acknowledging that my behavior is what my kids will imitate. Therefore, I need to think about how I behave so that they do what I do and not necessarily what I say.
Yeah. I like what you said with Jade. What you said is some people take longer to change, to accept, to transform, and all of that. I've got a formula for plan ahead. And one of the elements there is to leave time for acceptance, because change is hard for some people, right?
Right.
And one of the things about change is especially if you're dynamic and you're very interested in personal growth, you're growing all the time, but sometimes you grow in the wrong direction. But we don't take that into consideration. Sometimes the stuff we're growing was not ideal, and we have to work on that stuff as well. So some things that we learn and that we grow in, we have to unlearn. We're so focused the whole time about learning something new that sometimes we forget there's some stuff that you learned that you now need to unlearn. You can't operate like that anymore. It's not acceptable. It's not going to work. It's not where we're going. So yeah, I really love that point.
So on that point, what are some of the lessons that you've learned that you'd like to share with our audience? Because I know there is a lot.
There's lots. I think the one that firstly comes to mind is resilience is one of the things. And what I've gathered over time is to center intentionality and resilience around what I do. The intentionality part obviously is part of who I am. It is who I am, is to be very intentional with what I said. You said, we spoke about it earlier. I saw there was a comment from Nally as well, is the clarity and being present. So those things for me, I intentionally decide that's how I'm going to be. Resilience is important for me. And the importance of aligning my actions with my values. I think that's very important. That for me is key. Two things, and I always encourage people to think about these things in the same way. We can have two kinds of mindsets. We can have a victor's mindset or we can have a victim's mindset. So for me, that was a valuable lesson, is how am I going to feel about myself in the situation? I'm going to feel like a victor. I'm going to have a victor's mindset. The moment I move to a victim's mindset or a victim's mentality, like people often refer to it, then I've already lost the battle because I'm already on the back foot. I'm in a negative space. I'm not thinking clearly. So for me, you have to have that victor's mindset at all times. I'm not saying to be naive, but victim's mindset will put you at a loss every single time. I often encourage other people to view their obstacles as opportunities. I've said that. I will always say that because that fuels your personal growth. If you see that obstacle as an opportunity, you will automatically grow from that. You will want to learn something from that. You will focus on the wins. You will not focus on the losses. You will automatically have a more positive mindset. I remember, I always say to you that I read my first John Maxwell book at around 12, The 21 Laws of Leadership. Right after that, was positive thinking. And I think that was one of the things that shaped me as a person and changed that perception from victors to victims mindset. It's very important, Odette. The last thing is to keep patient with yourself. Patience with yourself is so important, and respecting your own process of transformation, because it doesn't just happen overnight. Be patient with yourself, respect your process of transformation, have a victor's mindset instead of that victim's mindset, and be intentional about what you're doing, because you're going to need resilience. Life is not easy. You're going to need to be resilient and move through obstacles. And again, Odette, I'm sure you've got lessons when it comes to experiences. Share those with us, because you can just bolt on what I said.
So the first one is probably a very good segue from what you've just said. And it's the most important story is the story that you tell yourself. It has taken me a lifetime to realize that and to acknowledge and accept and really allow it to sink deep into my soul so that I know that I get to change the story. It's my life. It's my party. I'll cry if I want to. It's my story. I'll tell whatever story I want to. And that story is going to determine whether or not I'm a victor or a victim. And also, the way that I speak to myself is so much more important than the way that others people speak to me. John Maxwell says you attract what you are, not what you deserve. So if I cannot speak to myself with grace, then I will attract people who do not show grace to me. Makes total sense. Because people who show grace are repelled by people who are ungraceful. Makes total sense. So for me, those two are like huge. But then once you get over the story that you tell yourself and you align yourself to the right truth, the right story, and I'm not this for those people listening, this is not tell yourself your truth. No, there is the truth. Let's just, okay, I am who God says I am. And it's in the Bible. For those of you who are wondering, it's not my truth, live my truth. Wrong podcast for that. But in terms of significant lessons for me was consistency. You guys will hear me talk about consistency, just like Dr. J talks about intentionality. It's not solving war and peace in the moment. It's doing the thing consistently, day in, day out, over time. I had a mentor that said to me, Odette, you're guaranteed to win simply because you're willing to do what it takes day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out, until you get what you want. And it really is that. It's being completely unfazed by the storms of life that comes because they come. And sometimes you plan for it and you can prepare for them, and sometimes you don't. But you've got to choose when you start on a journey whether or not you want to do this thing. And it comes down to, again, do I know what my purpose is? Why am I doing this thing? Because if your why is strong enough, then the storm's going to come and you're going to be like, that's fine. I'm just going to keep going. In addition to the consistency is obviously holding myself accountable. And in the times that I have not been able to hold myself accountable, I found people to hold me accountable. Where I struggle, I would go and find and seek someone out to say, hey, can you just help me? I'm struggling with this thing. And I know I'm not going to hold myself accountable. I'm just going to be like, no, it's fine. In those cases, I'm very graceful for myself when I really shouldn't be. And that's when I need the firm conversation about, but this is not okay. This is not how we roll. This is not how we do things. It's important for me to hold myself accountable because, again, I cannot realistically hold other people accountable if I don't hold myself accountable, because then I'm a hypocrite. And that makes it so much easier then when it comes to difficult times, because I know what I'm doing, but it then starts off with, am I clear? So did I know why I was doing this in the first place and where I was going? And if I am clear, then I can be consistent and then I can be held accountable. And lastly, obviously, I need to make sure that I do that all the time through my family, through my kids, through my business. And sometimes I get it wrong. I'm not sitting here saying I'm perfect. I'm not sitting here that I always get it right. Sometimes I do still fumble my words and I say things that are or I am completely unclear about something. But the reality is when we do the reflection, because we all should reflect at some point in the day, you go, okay, what did I do? This was really yuck. Oh, what did I contribute to this yuck? There, life could happen to you, but I do believe that in every situation we contribute something. And if there's a strange situation or a strange relationship, it's probably because you had some part of that. Okay, so what part did you play? And is this the part that you want to continue playing, or is there something you can do differently? I'm a little bit like a mad scientist. I will go and test things. So I'll go and use different words, or I'll meet someone in a different way, or I'll go say hi differently, or I'll try a different conversation just to see what happens. I don't think there's anything that's going to break here unless I'm lying to you, then there's trust involved, but that's not in my character. So that's not something that I need to worry about. So it's definitely, it comes down to being clear about who you are, what you want, where you're going, and why you're doing it. Consistently doing the thing that gets you to the goal. So your behavior has to mirror what you say is important to you, and then holding yourself accountable to such a high standard. I don't even have to say it to people. They know. When I met a client for the first time, she said to me, I want to work with you because I can see you hold yourself and other people to a higher standard. Sometimes it's hard because you are hard on yourself, but it's that higher standard that pushes you to get better. It's that higher standard that pushes you to get to the next level, to not stay where you are, because we are all made for more. And this is me pushing myself for more and pushing everyone around me for more, which obviously is hard for my kids sometimes, but that's how that goes. Dr. J, in the context of challenges, obviously resilience is huge. And you mentioned a little bit earlier that you learned resilience. Is there a specific mindset shift that's helped you to persevere?
Yes, absolutely. I think resilience, we've spoken about that. For me, it's cultivated by staying focused on long term goals and maintaining an eternal mindset. So that's the mindset change that I'm staying focused on an eternal mindset and not just what's happening right now. So if I think about and I have the mindset of eternity, the perspective encourages me to persist, because now what happens is, even in the face of adversity, I view every challenge as part of a larger journey rather than an isolated set. So what happens all the time is when something happens in our life, it feels, and depending on the size of it, of the adversity, it feels like your life is falling apart. If you
Yes.
have an eternal mindset, you then realize that this is just part of, and it's not the whole. It's just part of, and it's not,
Yeah.
and it's just an isolated setback. It's a setback, and therefore you can make a comeback. So you have to
Yeah.
change your mind. That's the mindset. Eternal mindset. It's just one setback. It's part of your bigger comeback. And that's helped me to build resilience. And it helps me to stay focused on the long term goals and maintaining that. But it comes back to what you were saying just now, is you have to know who you are, why you're doing this, and where you are going. That is the mindset of eternity and an eternal mindset as well. It's a bigger
Mm.
picture. It's being able to see the bigger picture. It's being able to take yourself out of the situation and have a different perspective. Is that easy? No, of course it's not. And that's why not everybody can make a comeback. That's why for most people it's a setback. But if you change your mindset and you view it in an internal perspective as just one thing, as part of a bigger thing, there's a lesson in here for me. There's something in here that's going to make me better. I can embrace that and have again that victor's mindset, or I can let that thing define me and I can have that victor mentality. And yeah, I think both of us, thinking about something you said yesterday, your vibe is your tribe. If I listen to the stuff that we're saying, is if people, funny enough, if people speak about me a lot of the time, yes, they speak intentionality, but the very next thing that they say, or sometimes the first, is, Janine, your word is consistency. And that is the thing. If you're consistently doing the right thing, consistently making the right decisions, and it's not that you never make a mistake at it. I think we all make mistakes in
No.
any way, but intentionally we are trying to make the right decisions. It builds that
Mm.
resilience on the inside of you. It builds your immune system for adversity. And that is
Yeah.
what people need. Yeah. But we cannot do this without support, Odette. So what is
Mm.
the role of support systems? And how do they play a role in your life when you're facing challenges yourself?
So my support system process, Majigi, which is a technical term, has morphed over the past couple of years. Initially, obviously, I had my support system in South Africa. I had my friends and family. And when we moved countries and I decided to change my life completely, I did leverage the support system we had back home, my friends, my family. I relied quite heavily on them. But there comes a point where you have to realize that they don't understand your context. And the people here simply could not fathom, even in the least, the stuff and things that I was going through, the challenges that I was facing. Because let's face it, while Australia is mostly made up out of immigrants, the people in my immediate space were not immigrants. So they could not even begin to fathom what it must be like to cut off everything you've known to start all over again. And then add to that, starting a business, learning how to run a business, because it is a different skill, I'll tell you, to having a job and earning a salary. You have to show up as a different individual. And when you put those two things together, it's like this big black hole of things that could happen. And I then had to very quickly transition my support system from a functional support system to a God support system. I had to buckle down and first figure out, who am I? What am I doing? How does this fit into the broader context? Where am I going with this? If you've watched my journey over the past 3 years, you'll think I'm a schizo because it's changed a lot. In the past 4 years, I've become a different person. I'm showing up differently. I'm doing things differently. But it started with going internal because of you. Again, the conversation I have with myself, if that conversation is off, I assure you the conversation I have with anyone else is going to be influenced and it will be equally off. So I had to first, I go, that's great, but this is not serving. This cannot serve. So what serves? And what serves was understanding my relationship and my alignment to God so that I could do what I needed to do and what I was called to do. And once I did that, I very quickly, once I became comfortable with what this then is, what it looks like and where I'm going, I went out to find my tribe because, yet, your vibe is your tribe. I went out to find people who are the same vibe as me. We push hard. We hold ourselves to a higher standard. We want more because there is more in life. We don't settle. We're continuously learning. We're willing to be brave and courageous and do things afraid and do things that you've never done before. And some of them work at 110 kilometers an hour. Some of them don't. But that's okay because even within a tribe, it takes a village to build a business and a brand. So even within that village, you've got people who nurture and you've got people who run really fast and you've got the hunters and the gatherers. And all of those are necessary to raise a family, to raise a business, to whatever. So I had to find mentors that supported me in that process. I had to find people that became part of my tribe. And by the way, the mentor that you have in the beginning of your process will most likely not be the mentor that you have in the middle or at the end, because we all serve a purpose and there is a season to everything. So those mentors were my support and they pushed, but there was a time when that mentor relationship was no longer serving where I was going and I had to move on and find another one. And then you pursue the mentor that's going to pull you and push you to a level that you need to go to, but only if they've already been there, because I don't think you can sow out of something you don't have. If you haven't been there, how can you? Anyway, that's just my perspective. And then, of course, creating the community, because as much as I'm an ambivert, I can both people and not. But the reality is life is so much richer when you have a community around you, when you've not got blind, like-minded people where we all say and do the same thing, but people who are all striving towards the same thing with the same principles, the same values, who value the same things because they will hold each other accountable. They don't shy away from having awkward and tough conversations because that's the key to growth, right? That's what makes the difference between the average business and the business that excels. It's being honest with yourself about what works, what doesn't, about the customer experience that you deliver, about how you treat your staff and whether or not this is the right thing. With all of those things play into the context of the support. And really, especially in business, I think it's very hard to keep your head above water, even if you're doing it alone, because business is isolating. Leadership is isolating. It doesn't have to be, but it is. And we need to choose to surround ourselves then with people who can take us, who can go along the journey with us, but not pity us. Because this is not a feel sorry for me, I'm a victim, this sucks. It's this is hard. Yeah, I did. It's hard. So now what you going to do about it? Yeah, that's the support system. Dr. J, in terms of your support system, you've obviously seen lots of things and you've experienced what I would term as tragedy at a very young age or at a very early stage of your life. And you look at Dr. J, she looks 21, but she's got the wisdom of a 70-year-old. What support systems, what does your support system look like? Was it the same when you started? Has it morphed over time? And how has it helped you overcome obstacles that come with being a mom, being a wife, being a business owner, writing two very cool books, by the way, those of you who are wondering.
So for
Yeah.
me, support systems are integral to my journey, but every other entrepreneur's journey. And yes, you mentioned also mentors, family. And I like what you said, the God support system, which is our spiritual practice, because they bring encouragement and grounding. I learned very early on in my entrepreneurial journey. I thought entrepreneurs or people paint the picture that entrepreneurs are these happy, outgoing, extroverted people that has all the support in the world. The business is just great. The moment you become an entrepreneur, you become rich, famous, you have all these things. I don't know where they get that picture from, but that's the picture that people paint. Maybe it's how they would like it to be, but that's not how it is. So the very
Mhm.
first lesson that I had to learn that support in entrepreneurship does not look like I thought it does. And it's a very lonely journey, first of all. Like you explained how it was for you moving to Australia. That's how I felt moving on into entrepreneurship. And my move was very quick, as I said earlier. Death of income mean I had a job the one day and I didn't have it the next. And I just had a brand new baby and I had to just do something and make it happen. So my support system looked different. My situation looked different. And I just knew that I just had to make this work. And then I realized, oh my goodness, people don't understand what I'm going through. They don't understand what I'm dealing with. So my support, it felt like I didn't have any at the time, but I just had to look elsewhere. It's because
Mm,
it's not my friends at the time. It's not my friends. It's just people don't have an idea. It's not my family didn't love me, didn't care for me, didn't like
mm,
they just they also have never dealt with something like this. So how must they understand? How must they navigate? Like
yeah.
you said, if you haven't been there, how are you going to help somebody else to do that? So we have to define what support looks like and how you get
Mm,
that and the kind of support that you need in the season because support looks different in each kind of season. So
yeah.
for me, I think what I realized was it support comes from family, first of all. You might not like their support, but it's support. And
Yeah.
that's just the truth of it. And support comes through mentors. And for me, a very integral part of it is the spiritual practices, the God support that you spoke about earlier. I think we need to lean in a lot of the times to ourselves. And it's as a coach, that is we pull the answer out of the person because we know the person has the answer. And
Mm,
then I was like at one stage, so why am I not doing that to myself? Hello. Why am I not pulling the answer out of myself? I know what it is. So I just need to pull that out from myself, see what that support is, because we're looking for support from everybody else. But why aren't you supporting yourself? You should be your biggest cheerleader. You
Yes.
should be your biggest
Yes.
cheerleader. You should cheer yourself
Come
on.
on.
And this is the thing with entrepreneurship, you learn that very quickly, because sometimes when you look around you, you're like, oh, there's no one. Like, if it's
No.
up to me, it's up to me. If this is going to happen, it's going to be up to me. So support in that
Mm.
aspect for me, you have to support yourself. You have to look to your family. Yes, they will be there for you. You might not always like their support or the way it looks like, but it's support. And look at for mentors. And the most important for me is the God aspect of it. That is where most of my strength, my joy, and my support comes from. These relationships that we have, they are a reminder to us of our purpose, and they help us to navigate these obstacles that comes into our lives.
Mm.
But Odette, I'm sure you've got real life examples and stories of how you've overcome a challenge that led to unexpected growth, because all challenges is supposed to lead to growth.
Unfortunately, this is a true story. We all want the promise. Nobody wants the process that goes with it. And I've alluded to it before, and you've also said it before. When you choose to run a business and invest in your children at the same time in parallel, it's rough. And I think you said that people think that entrepreneurship is a certain way. I think when we go into entrepreneurship, and even when I chose to sow into my kids, there was a level of blindness that came along with it. There was a level of blindness that came along with immigration. Yes, I prepared for it. I read every news article that was available. I read every book. I did every podcast. I did all the things you're supposed to do to prepare for a thing. And yet I still walked into it blind, because you do not, at the time of doing the thing, have the awareness so that you can go, okay, these things, this is how I integrate it. It's just information at the time. I always say that information is very different to insight, and you don't always extract the insight when you read it. It's when you're in the thing and you're in the middle of the fire, and suddenly there's this, oh, I get it. So it starts off with a complete blindness, and then all of these things can be a really black hole. And in my case, growth and learnings were forced onto me. Luckily, I guess I've never really sat down and said, oh, it's me. That's just not been my character or my personality. So it's always been a matter of, okay, we're just going to do it. But in the process, I've learned so much about myself. I've learned that I'm actually a lot stronger than I thought I was, because you think you're okay. And then when you think something's going to break you, it never does. It's always that thing that proves to you how strong you are. I love talking to my cousin. They've had a baby, and she would say to me, I think I'm going to die. And I say, you know what? You're going to get to the point where you believe you're going to die. You do it because you're not sleeping. And this kid doesn't stop crying, and you actually don't know what to do anymore. And then suddenly you don't die and everything's okay. So that's been my philosophy when it comes to life. The point where you think you just can't do it anymore, the point where you think you're going to die, you're not. So just keep going, right? We don't give up. We just keep going. And you mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's that eternal perspective. For me, it's been a matter of initially, when I was younger, I really got caught up I really internalized situations and things that go wrong, and when my life's going to fall apart. And it's got a lot to do with understanding who you are going in before you go out. But I didn't do that at the time. And there was a lot of stuff that sat there. And as the process continued, the word process, oh, very uncomfortable, but that process teaches you that this is a blip on a timeline. And when you look ahead, it's not going to matter. And for me, one of the things that really started solidifying that for me was when I was in South Africa. I had an agreement with my leader that I would be in at 6, but then I leave at 3. That was the deal, which meant I was up at the crack of dawn, and I was at the office working. I often switched on the lights and woke up security. It was like that, whatever, it doesn't matter, so that I could go home. And that was the agreement, because there was some sort of flexibility. It's nowhere near the flexibility that's available now, but that was flexibility at the time. And then without fail, some other leader, this leader, would schedule a meeting after I was supposed to leave and would require me to be there. Now you're causing like stress, and there's this tension because this is not the agreement. But I also knew that I probably couldn't say too much about it because this is South Africa. Not everyone has a job. It's got a really high unemployment rate. So you probably need to shut up because you probably need your job. And I turned around one day and I said, Lord, I actually don't know. This is freaking me out and it's stressing me out. I'm going to leave this with you. I'm not going to say anything, but this is not fair. This is not what we agreed. This is not right. And you know what? From the moment that I relinquished control and the need to own and be right and do all of from that moment, I kid you not, Dr. J, every meeting that they would set up at that time, they would cancel. I didn't have to. When people put stuff in my diary, I would just be like, yeah, okay. It got to that point where and then I would be asked, this meeting's at like 5. Yeah, that's fine. And then a day before the meeting happens or the morning that the meeting happens, they would cancel it or they would move it because actually this is not up to me. Like there are things in life that you cannot control. You just have to surrender to the process. And that was probably the biggest starting point for me to realize that within the moment when I got that meeting request, you've got to be joking. You are messing with my life. I need to go see my kid. I didn't see them this morning. I had to phone them to say good morning so that I could be here, so that I could see them in the afternoon. This is not right. And understanding that there is a broader context. And what you see now is just it's a small amount of information. I always say to my husband, we don't have the full story. We don't have the full context. There's other things happening that you're not privy to. I don't know what's going on. I don't know the conversations. I don't know the things. I don't know what's happening elsewhere in the world. I only know what I have. So I have limited insight. And understanding that you have limited insight, then when you take that in, you go, okay, but perhaps there is other things happening around this that I don't need to worry about. And the Bible says that God makes all things work together for the good of those who are loved and called according to his purpose. So if that's the case, why am I stressing about it? This is the information I have. Does this information cause me stress? Yeah, it does. Okay. But so what? I don't have the information. I'm just not going to worry about it. And that was probably the biggest learning character-wise, to realize that some things do go wrong. And yes, there were times that I had to be in a meeting at 5:00 in the afternoon and then deal with whatever comes with it. But the reality is that was the exception rather than the rule. And when you take the stance of, in the long run, this is not going to matter, or it's a blimp on a timeline, then suddenly your brain stops stressing about it. There's no more hormones shooting through there's no fight or flight. It's just information, and it just is what it is. So now when stuff happens, rightfully or wrongfully, I sleep really well. So probably my biggest learning was not to sweat the small thing, because 9 out of 10 times, the thing that you worry about never happened, first of all. And secondly, there are a handful of things that will be catastrophic. A handful in life, not even in the moment. So don't worry about it. It's not going to be a catastrophe. It'll be fine. So yes, that is my long-winded story of what I've learned. Dr. J, what advice can you give leaders and business owners who are currently facing challenges, and how can they stay focused and motivated through tough times?
I hope you're taking notes, but you gave us the answer already. And I was going to tell you is the first thing I do is to trust the process is huge. So trust the process, stay consistent. You have to see continuous improvement. You have to see continuous improvement. You have to see continuous self-improvement. It's just one of those things. You have to be intentional about where you are going. You have to align your actions with your core values. I said that before, and for me, that's extremely important. Align your actions with your core values. You have to cultivate resilience. It doesn't just happen. It doesn't just build through circumstances. You don't qualify for resilience because you've gone through adversity and tough times. You have to cultivate resilience And you have to draw strength from both your internal resolve and your external support systems. That's really taking everything we said today and putting it in a nutshell, is to draw from both your internal resolve and your external support systems, is the people that surround you. And support systems, just wanted to mention that as well, Odette. Support systems is not always people. It can be systems as well. It can be habits
Yes.
that you put into place.
Yes.
Support does not always come in the form of people. And I don't mean this demeaning, but people can disappoint, where systems will probably not let you down. Habits and those things that you form is going to help you to get through these things. So that's why I stress that, is that you have to draw strength from both your internal resolve as well as your external support systems. Yeah, that's my advice during tough times. So it is to trust the process, stay consistent, be intentional, see continuous self improvement. And I don't just say these things. This is what I do. That's why I say it. That's the stuff that I do. That's how I live, very intentionally.
Absolutely. I love that. Dr. J, final thoughts, because we're on 58 minutes and I'm sure you've got places to be, people to see, and our listeners probably need to get to work. What would you leave our audience with?
I think in times of uncertainty, we all face that. I believe it's go to your go-to strategies. Make sure that you plan, align your actions with your purpose, and foster that mindset that embrace adaptability, because things are not going to go the way that you planned them, and they're also not going to go the way that you thought they were going to go. So you have to understand that change is constant, and you have to embrace these realities so that you can be prepared for the future, so that you can adapt to them, so that you can build that resilience and navigate through uncertainty. It's just one of those things. It's how it's going to be. So prepare yourself mentally, prepare yourself emotionally, and prepare yourself spiritually, because then you'll be able to have a sense of purpose and also navigate through those adversity and uncertain times.
Couldn't agree more. If there's one thing I think our listeners should most certainly walk away with, it's that challenges don't define you, but if you allow them to, they will refine you. And
That's
your
beautiful.
obstacles are not going to change your life. It's going to change who you are. It builds character. As Dr. J said, stay clear on your goal, hold yourself accountable, and trust the process. Oh my goodness. Those are words we don't like to hear. However, it's just the reality of life, and that's how we get better at it. So this has been an absolute gem of a conversation. If you took notes, beautiful. If you didn't, it is on a recording and it will be posted on LinkedIn. So you are more than welcome to go and check out the YouTube and so on. For the practical insights, I hope you've had huge insights. You've taken lots of notes, and I hope that you walk away encouraged, especially if you're facing a challenging season at the moment. Remember, every setback is an invitation to grow stronger, to clarify your goals, and to connect more deeply with your purpose. Before we close, here's a little bit of a reminder. Sharing is caring. So if you found today's episode valuable, please send it to someone who needs to hear this. Send it to someone who could benefit from these insights or who needs a pick-me-up, because sometimes we all do. Remember to amplify with purpose. I can't wait to bring you the next conversation. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Thanks, Dr. J, for joining us.